Alright guys, welcome back to F1 News, and after Lewis Hamilton finished on the podium at the Silverstone Grand Prix 2022 after winning it last year, he certainly had a few spicy words to say for Max Verstappen after his kind of, battle that he had on the final couple of laps with Charles Leclerc, saying Leclerc's a much more sensible driver, a very different story this season to what they experienced last time around. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy, subscribe if you're new as always. Definitely a pretty spicy topic of discussion. Of course, Leclerc during the race had this front wing damage early on, did a remarkably good job to be effectively the fastest guy on the track for a time throughout the majority of the race. Like, I have no idea honestly how he handled the car so well, and then Ferrari decided, okay, no, we're going to screw you over once again. So incredible scenes from the Ferrari camp, of course, that we discussed yesterday. But still, the big discussion was, the end of the race was absolutely spectacular, all those laps after the safety car, and there was that incredible battle between Hamilton and Leclerc. I believe it was on lap 48 when he was closing up kind of through Brooklands, comes out into Woodcote, and then Hamilton still has the lead at that point, and then Leclerc comes back around the outside, both of them go into cops, and the fact that Leclerc's on the hard tyres with a damaged front wing and goes for that move around the outside was incredible. Hamilton flows closely enough through Magus and Beckett and ends up taking him into Stowe in the end. So phenomenal racing. But this is what Hamilton had to say after the race, just talking about that incident really, that we'll have a look at here in a second, saying that actually this year that kind of battle in cops is very different to what we saw at the last year's Grand Prix, saying that Leclerc is a much more sensible driver than what we saw last time round with Max Verstappen.
But everyone is waxing lyrical about your fight with Charles, just the sort of bravery and the precision of both of you. Just reflect on that little...
Yeah, Charles did a great job. What a great battle. Very sensible driver. Clearly a lot different to what we experienced last year. In like Cops, for example. Two of us went through there no problem, but what a battle.
Unbelievable.
Clearly a lot different to what I experienced last year, as you said. At Cops, of course, two of us went through there with no problem at all. So, of course, look, people are going to look at this, they're going to compare the two incidents, and they're going to say, well, this time around, Hamilton definitely positioned the car in a different perspective to what he did against Max Verstappen, you could well argue last year. And of course, last year, there was back and forth between both the drivers. I'm sure that Hamilton thought he had to get his elbows out a little bit to, battle back for the way Verstappen likes to drive a car. But of course, look, he was deemed at fault for that incident last year at Silverstone. This time around, there was no incident, because he played it safer, but also just that, generally the racing so far, even between Max and Charles, has certainly been more, let's just say, sensible than it was at times, especially throughout the end of last season. But this was the move in question, right, when, of course, Leclerc's coming up the outside here of Cops, Hamilton's on the inside line. Very similar situation to what happened before last time, even though this time it was Leclerc coming from the back. Last time it was Hamilton coming up against Leclerc, of course, and this was, the actual incident. You can see the line here that Hamilton takes, very close to the apex of the corner, gives plenty of room on his left-hand side. Leclerc, very ballsy to go around here with used hard tyres, with a damaged front wing. Honestly, an incredible move that he actually managed to pull off here. This, though, is the comparison to last season, right? So this was first lap of Silverstone 2021, the incident that happens here where Hamilton, of course, takes out Verstappen, sends him off into the barrier, and then Hamilton gets the 10-second penalty, ends up fighting back to win the race regardless. You can certainly see here that he's, got another probably metre or so of distance that he could have put himself in if he'd taken the same line in this instance as he did, for example, against Charles Leclerc, then more than likely no incident occurs. And of course, this instance has been talked about to death already. I feel like if it was the other way around and it was Verstappen on the inside, Hamilton on the outside, Hamilton would have probably said, okay, yeah, fair enough, you made a bit of a dangerous move, but I won't turn in. You can have the place. I'll live to fight another day. Whereas Verstappen was like, look, I'm going to turn in regardless. If you want to put the car there, I'm going to effectively just turn in, try and make the corner anyway. And then, of course, the crash happens, right? I feel like, different drivers have different perspectives on that. But the way Hamilton positioned his car here was certainly suboptimal compared to the incredible battle they had against Leclerc. But that's just kind of the whole idea, really, that I think people do, and Hamilton clearly does, consider Charles a more sensible driver in general than Verstappen in terms of the way he was making these moves, and the moves are generally made between the drivers. So, Hamilton probably just had a bit more respect, if anything, for Charles Leclerc and saying, okay, look, I'll give you the space. Let's have a great race here. Whereas probably last year, Hamilton was like, look, Verstappen wouldn't do the same to me, so I'm going to do the same back to him effectively, was maybe what got into his head a little bit. So, interesting set of incidents, really, but definitely some spicy words from Lewis. Now, of course, the other part of this discussion really was about what happened towards the end of the race, because lots of people have said, and maybe understandably, that all this crazy battle we had at the end between, these five cars you can see on screen right here, we had Perez, Charles Leclerc, Hamilton, Alonso, and Norris right there. They had incredible battle between these drivers, and Verstappen, of course, wasn't involved in this tussle, right? And some were saying that if Verstappen was there, there'd have been some more dodgy moves, people have been forced off the track more often, even though there was still some dodgy moves between Perez and the likes that were doing some interesting things in that Red Bull, it must be said. And some were suggesting that if Max was here involved in this battle, driving as he was last season, then you would have probably got maybe this battle would have lasted one corner before before someone's off the track and into the gravel or whatever. And we did kind of see an example of that towards the end of the race, right, when we did have Mick Schumacher battling with Verstappen for 7th place. This is through Brooklands, when he forces Schumacher completely off the road right here, which, you know, if anything, I don't know, like, it's hard racing, right? It's hard racing. It's what we come to expect from Max Verstappen at this point. But, you know, it's certainly racing, which is on a limit, I would say, of what is probably acceptable. I think some people would say, okay, it's fine, or some people would say it's the other way around, depending on kind of your perspective on the situation. And even this one into the final corner, right, when Mick was thinking about setting it up the inside into the final corner to try and get P7, thinks better of it, though, because Verstappen was like, you're not having that space at all. I'm coming across and going to block you off here, right? And look how close their wheels get. Mick has to brake and back off it, because if he doesn't, they take both of them, I think, yeah, both of them go out of the race, right? And who knows if they'd have still managed to cross the line anyway, because it's literally right here as the checkered flag. So, remarkable battle, but I believe even Verstappen said after this race, he said over the last few hours that he effectively was thinking to Schumacher, like, look, I'm not going to give you the space. If you want to crash, you can crash, but you've got to make the decision. Very Senna-esque in a way, actually, kind of the way he would usually drive. But I think it is reasons like this, examples like this, and certainly, you know, you can look last year at Brazil and Jeddah and other tracks as well, where Verstappen and his crew has definitely made some, let's just say, you know, more aggressive decisions than some other drivers do. And it seems like, therefore, Hamilton has just more respect in general for the way Charles Leclerc drives and the way Charles Leclerc battles than he did in his, you know, battle with Max Verstappen last season. And therefore, he's going to make the comments he did, despite the fact that in reality, it was Lewis's positioning that was really the key difference between those two incidents. But definitely tweet your thoughts in the comment section below. Like, yeah, these two still do seem to get on and are kind of friendly on and off the track at times, but you know, they can't go too long without throwing a dig at one another, it does seem as well. And yeah, just to mention this as well, actually, on Alonso, because this is kind of another discussion, because obviously a lot of praise for Leclerc, the way he was driving, and the team screwed him over again. But Alonso wasn't so convinced the driving was actually that good, because he says that during the end of the race, Leclerc was kind of weaving on the straight to try and defend against Alonso, which is what Alonso did in Canada, pretty sure, to defend against Bottas, and eventually gets a 5-second penalty for that, which put him behind both Bottas and I believe maybe another driver as well, whereas here he reckons Leclerc did the same thing and didn't get a penalty, right? It's a bit of an interesting one, actually. Or maybe he's actually talking about when Leclerc was kind of weaving, trying to defend against Hamilton, to Alonso saying, well, he should have got a penalty for that, because if I got a penalty in Canada, he should have done as well. And Alonso's thinking, okay, maybe he could have got a P4 out of this race, right, and got even closer to the podium than Alonso in the Alpine did. But yeah, definitely still some questions being raised on, let's just say, inconsistent stewarding, which has been the story of Formula 1 really the last couple of years. But very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new as always, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.